One of the biggest national security stories of the new year is just around the corner. Taiwan will hold presidential elections on January 13th, and China is warning that they will use military force to annex the island if its people vote for a candidate that supports the independence of the island. Joining us right now on that story and more is Michael O'Hanlon. He is the Philip H. Knight Chair in Defense and Strategy at the Brookings Institution. And Michael, great to have you here. Unfortunately, New Year is going to bring some new problems, including this story we just mentioned about with Taiwan. How big of a problem do you think this potentially could be?
Hi, Becky, and Happy New Year to you. I think it's certainly worth watching, but I don't really think that China's going to invade or otherwise attack Taiwan just because Vice President Lai wins the election, which I think he's likely to do, since, as you know, the two opposition candidates, or the non-incumbent candidates, were trying to form a unity ticket and failed to do so. So they're going to now split the opposition vote as Lai tries to succeed President Tsai, and he's currently her vice president. Again, that's all the backdrop. DPP already is in power, already tends to favor autonomy and hint at a desire for long-term independence more than the KMT party. So, as you say, Beijing doesn't like that and does threaten to invade. But President Lai's platform really is the same formally as President Tsai. And so if China's lived with Tsai for 8 years, it can probably live with Lai for 4 or whatever, especially since the alternative is potentially World War III. So I think my hope, you don't want to say prediction, my hope is that China will err on the side of caution, especially having watched 2 years of war in Ukraine and recognizing the terrible costs of modern warfare, both militarily and economically. And unless Lai makes a big, bold, unexpected move like a declaration of independence, I don't think there's likely to be war.
Why issue these threats to begin with, though? Because if they don't follow through, it looks like they are stepping back and not willing to stand up to their own red lines.
Well, they're also pretty bad at influencing Taiwan elections, as they've attempted in the past. And as you point out, when they've been threatening before, it hasn't really worked to their advantage. Leave aside the reputational costs longer term, it also tends to help the people in Taiwan they don't want to help, the more hawkish, the DPP type candidates. So I think China's been somewhat limited in how much it's done in this campaign for that reason. And they've tried to use things like deep fakes where they've got some degree of plausible deniability or distance from an active hand. I think the specific warning that you're talking about was issued more to Vice President Lai than to anyone, reminding him that the stakes here are high. And if he gets some silly idea about thinking he has American cover for any and all moves towards independence, then he better think twice. But I don't really think China expects him to lose the election, and I don't really think China expects him to make such a stark, bold move towards independence that they'll have to use force. Now that, there always is the possibility of ramping up through very gradual moves, cyber attacks, the occasional missile firing near Taiwan, maybe even something a little riskier than landing a missile in a harbor, but trying not to hit anybody. These are the kinds of things I wouldn't rule out, but I don't expect a major use of force.
Let's talk a little bit about what's been happening in Ukraine, because while they've been pretty good at fighting off and fending off some of the missile attacks and drones coming in from the Russians, they were not as successful at the end of the year. There was something like 114 missiles and drones knocked down out of 158. They took much more damage than we've seen in the past. We're 2 years in. What's going to happen next?
Yeah, it's a great question, Becky. I think the most likely prediction for the year has to be more of the same and not much movement on the front lines. And that's obviously a tragic and sad prognostication, but I don't see a lot of basis to think otherwise. The Ukrainians are nowhere near wanting to concede the amount of territory they've lost to Russia, roughly 17% of their overall original landmass. And the Russians are nowhere near thinking that, they should compromise. And they're still holding out hope their defense industry can outlast ours and that Donald Trump may come to office and cut a good deal for them. So I think both sides are likely to keep pushing and, battling away, trying to make incremental progress on the front lines. And as you say, Russia will keep attacking Ukraine's cities. And Ukraine has pretty good air defenses, but, 75% intercept rate is a lot better than zero, but it's a lot worse than 100%. We've still seen dozens of people injured or killed really each day so far over the last few days in Ukraine. And as you point out, the success rate for these intercepts is not improving any longer. don't think it will, given that Russia has a wide array of weaponry to use and can attack many different cities. So I think we're going to continue to see these kind of numbers in terms of the attack results.
Michael, we've been talking about Congress coming back and facing a government shutdown because we can't agree on spending levels. What about Ukraine aid? What about Israel aid? And all of these things that just seem like they're in a too hard pile right now.
Yeah, well, on this one, I don't want to sound optimistic about prognostication, but I still have a hard time believing the United States is going to leave Ukraine high and dry. It's one thing to have a debate about whether we could keep supporting an offensive-oriented strategy designed to liberate territory that they probably won't be able to liberate this year or next year. That's a reasonable debate. But the idea of cutting off Ukraine in the face of this terrible Russian aggression is something I would hope that neither party, and especially my Republican friends, would really want to contemplate or have saddling their own reputations and their own views on national security. So I'm still hopeful that at the end of the day, most of that $60 billion will be approved, but we'll have to see.
Michael, assuming, let's say that is approved and we get that extra tranche of support from the U.S., is the Biden administration now thinking in terms of just how exactly, the denouement occurs? Are we going to move towards some negotiation, or is it just going to be, sort of dig in and hope things improve on the battlefield?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think that the Biden administration is reluctant to push Ukraine to make decisions that Ukrainians themselves have the right to make about at what point they're tired of fighting and are willing to accept territorial compromise. Also, there's no real good answer about how to secure Ukraine's long-term security. Formally, we're all saying they should be in NATO. Practically, a lot of countries, including the United States, don't want to bring them into NATO anytime soon and have to go fight in their defense. So we're going to have to find a more clever way around that. And I don't see a lot of movement on that debate. I think there are ways to gradually thicken our number of military trainers inside of Ukraine as part of a Western operation that's not necessarily NATO membership, but still creates a tripwire. For example, you could imagine different auspices under which you would do that. But that debate really isn't happening. I think the Biden team is trying to help Ukraine, hoping against hope they can make progress on the battlefield, but really giving them the chance to make the decision about when they're ready to negotiate. By the way, Russia's not interested in negotiating now itself. Yeah. So even if Ukraine were willing to, it's not clear where that would go.